So yeah, the title is Live Ops Used Across the World. So I'm just going to introduce myself first for the people that doesn't know me. So I've been in the online industry for a very long time. I've built online platform for the marketing side, analytic platform, video streaming platform, and also worked for United Nations for a while, and for Ubisoft's Open Studio for Ubisoft, Open Studio for Unity, and then we created something called PlayFab about 4 years ago, and now we got acquired by Microsoft in January. And right now there's a huge investment of Microsoft into the gaming industry, but really to provide you with more tools and provide you with ways to create more powerful and meaningful games. And that will be addressed through this presentation as well. So first, yeah, live ops used across the world. So what I wanted today to do with this presentation is really, gather the feedback and the things that we have learned through the last 4 years. Okay, so we've been through a really long journey. We've seen a lot of things. We've seen a lot of things that work, some that doesn't work, and for the first time, I'm actually going to bring you data from PlayFab itself. So we've never done that before. This is really the start of it. So hopefully, in every presentation or every month, we're going to be able to give you more feedback about the KPIs inside of PlayFab. So first, so it's data insights, some quick tips, and some live up tools, and where do I believe all of this is going. So let's start. So that's a nice chart, right? So more or less what I wanted to show here is that we're close to 1 billion players now that have been through the portfolio of games that use PlayFab. And then there's this, there's some arrows that goes up and some arrows that goes down. So I was wondering, why the hell do we have those goes down? We're a service provider, right? So I went to dig inside of the old players that we have, all the games that we have, to understand what are those little gaps, and try to convey this information to you. This, as I'm saying, this is the first time we're doing that, so it's really the tip, and in the future, where I'm going to go more fine-grained into what are these type of dips for. So first, wow, is that beautiful, right? So that's a game that fell, a typical shark fin. And that's another game that fell, another shark fin. And that's another one that fell. So we have many of those games that literally they get. Do we have a laser on that? No, I think. Okay. So they get promoted by the store, and even if they get promoted, they just don't keep their users. Somehow there's something in their game that, it's fun, but not enough to keep it up. It's very well made, very nice game. It's fun to play, but I just won't play it again. And you can see at the end those little bumps is more or less that they made enough money with the game to try to do some user acquisition. And yeah, and those are really games that we're pushing, we're giving advice, and then in the end, they just trash the games. And then on the other hand, we have these games, right? Games that start slowly, then ramp up, and then you see the bumpy ride that is happening. You can see that there's iteration happening in the game. Same thing here, a totally different type of curve, another one. And so I wanted to compare these type of games, right? So I did a full query through all the games to pick the one that doesn't work, pick the one that works, and try to figure out why, right? And somehow you can see here where there's the cross across after 100 days that have been live, you start to see a uptrend or a downtrend that really goes down. And somehow, all of the games, if not 95% of the games that are doing this like that, they don't have anything for their community at all. They don't have anything to keep the players engaged. They don't use push notification. They don't use segmentation. They just make a game, literally. There's some in-app purchases and all that, but there's nothing to communicate back and keep your retention up. While the other games is completely the opposite. They have the whole thing. They always have some tools to communicate with their players. They always have some ways for the players to compete to each other, either using leaderboards, tournaments. But they also put a lot of price into the progression system inside of their game. So literally, we can see a causal effect that obviously, if your retention is bad, you are going to go right away like this if you don't use all of these tools I just talked to you about. But there's a huge impact if you implement these properly. So you have to keep in mind why live ops operation is so important, is really to keep up the uptrend with your games. So make it happen. So live ops wins. So, and then I went a bit deeper to look at what do we have in the gaming industry today. So that's from last week. And all of these games, top grossing games in all the countries, they're all live ops games. So we went to 4 years ago where we had like 3 or 4 of them, and now it's all of them. So it's really to keep in mind. You have to integrate those principles that we've been talking about the whole day and that Yuli was talking about just now. It's really going to help you. It motivates people to get engaged and not only to spend more time, but to spend money in your game as well. So make it happen. So I went a bit more into PlayFab, and that's kind of cool. So since we have all these APIs open and all the developers can use them at any time, I did that query, which is give me all the players who spent something in the last 6 months through the portfolio of 3,000 games plus, and give me data, right? So here you can see trends, like literally. So for all the players that pay over $1,000 through the lifetime, you can see that their first payment is $26 in average, while the people over $1 through their lifetime is $6. So there's a huge gap between the two, obviously. And some of these players have been playing the game for 600 days, 400 days, or even more, before they reach that cap in the last 6 months, just so you understand well what is this data set all about. And then there's this thing, which is percentage of days played since their first login. So the super whales, right? They've been playing 75% of the possible days they could play that game. So literally, they've been playing almost every day. So it means there's a need of stuff to be done, of content to be consumed, of tournaments to spend some time in it. Contrary to the the spenders who spend just $1 or more until $99, it's only 46% of the days. But still, there's a huge gap between the two. And I would like in the future to drill these down to what type of games. Is it action game? Is it idle game? Is it RPG game? MMO? Because we have all these type of games to really try to figure out what are those patterns, and then by countries. So that's something I will be able to show you in the future. And then there's this, which is very cool. So let me explain to you what that is. So that's when do they start paying? Question we had in previous talk, right? So let me get the pointer again. Okay, so that's the first day, and that's 31 days plus. So as we know, most of the payment happens in the first day here, right? But after 31 days, look at that. Each of the group, we still have a big amount of people are going to spend after 31 days. They're going to do their first payment after 31 days they started playing. So there's some players, for example, that are whales. They're going to start paying, 200 days, 250 days after they started to play the game. And then they get so involved, committed, they spend over $1,000. So there's in this group, so first, right, how many people do we have in there, right? That's a good question. So it's in the millions and the millions and the millions of players. And then here, it's almost 100,000 players. So you can think about how many there is. And the group, I could have added another one, which is spenders over $10,000, because there's enough, right? That was like, there's not enough space for it. So maybe next time. But you have a large group of thousands of spenders that spend more than $10,000 per game. So there's a lot of different groups, and it's important to keep in mind and keep a lot of content so that it can spend later. That way you will be able to monetize more and have more money with time. So, so what I'm gonna do now is more or less like give you like some really basic tips. Okay, so to schools that I go to teach about live game operation, or to studios that are just starting in the field, I'm talking about these 4 categories, which is, I would say, like the blue one is the one that takes the most time to implement, and the red one is the one that takes the less time to implement in your game. So the whole point of each of these points is that they will give you some retention, but also some monetization as well. So for example, I don't know if you guys play games like Art of Conquest, for example. So that's but it follows the Chinese model, which is that they're going to do a big update every month with a lot of new content and a new track completely to be done by the whole community. And so then those are development time that are required are much more longer than obviously implementing a gacha system or some time boost to go faster in your game. But still, the reward effect are pretty much the same, except that for the, if you look at the, I should have added some charts, but more or less like the uptrends for payments, if you took the one on the left, would be more stable with time, rather than the one on the right is going to be more like bumps, right? And a really good system is the VIP system that creates loyalty. We heard that a lot of times today. And I really encourage everyone to have such a system, either by using subscription through iOS or any other kind of subscription method. And the seasonal one, which is a 3-month subscription, is probably the best. And through those periods, also you're going to find out through A/B testing that the VIPs will spend with different rhythm, and you should actually come up with different stores for them, so that it can be more, I would say, into their community and sharing experiences with the others around them, and bring them to adventures or lead them into the clan. So now we go into the type of teams that I saw. So I saw all different type of teams, and this is the one that fails the most, okay, which is one studio with a lot of people, and everyone is working on games, right? So what I mean by that is that you as an engineer could work on game A, B, C, D in the same month, right? So in these type of studios, there's a lot of burnout, actually, because they don't feel like they actually are part of the game enough to evolve through the rhythm of live game operation. And as you have learned today, if you were here through the whole track, it's really demanding. You have to do updates every week or every 2 weeks, so it can build up like a bit of pressure in the team. So this type of way to build a company is not necessarily the best. What works the best, actually, is to have a very small team, very lean, and have one person that has a lot of responsibility. So that creates ownership. And as you progress with the development, creating your first MVP, releasing the MVP to track your retention rate into the public sector, then you will be able to scale up that team to a lot more people afterwards. But this is going to be a crew that is going to own that game entirely. It's going to be their baby. Because when you do live game operation, there's so much things that are important toward the community, that you really need to have that feel and that hand on the community to understand what are the feedback of the change that you're doing. And if you go to the previous model, when you work on something, you leave it there, then you concentrate on something else, your attention span is going to blow up, and it's not good. And when you go back to bed at night, you have a lot of things to think about, and it's frustrating. And these companies doesn't work as well as the other one. And obviously, when you have your live game that is up, you continue with small teams that tries to iterate in creating those MVPs. And then, if it's a good game, good retention, then obviously you grow the game afterwards. Where are we at? Yeah, so that's something that I really look forward is that every studio should have their champion, so which is like someone to refer to if there is issues about some either cultural issues. For example, when you try to go global with a game, to really have good understanding of things that were learned through other experience in the past. So it's good to be like to start new, but still having people with experience is a lot better. So yeah, get organized. So what are you looking here is a tool called AHA. You could use MS Project or MS Planner, obviously, but I really like this one because it's also implemented with GitHub and also with your, you can have, for example, other tools such as the one here, okay, to get all your support feedback or your crash analytic, they can go all in your tool, and then you have one place to understand what are the current sprint that are happening, but also what happened in the past, all the KPIs. It's a really good tool to put everything together. And obviously using Slack or Teams or Discord, use the APIs to reflect that data back to where you're talking is very important. And then, yeah, so those are kind of like the things you have to always keep in mind. So cadence as you're making live ops events to make sure that you're not burning out your players, making too much content every week. But also if you make like event that is really based into spending money, but you shouldn't make the same type of event in the same month, maybe another month afterwards, depending on which market you're targeting, either Asia or the West, because it's different in the markets. But also events are targeted to retention. It's very important to plan all of these things way forward, at least 3 to 6 months in the front, so that your game design team are always in the forefront, and then at the end, more or less like your live ops team that is taking that up and pushing up online and evaluating how everything is working. So I'm going to go quick on that. So analytic. Snowflake, for the people who doesn't know that, it's more or less a place where you can throw all your data in it and you can do any kind of queries. That's what I use actually to do the slide I showed you earlier, which had terabytes and terabytes of data, and it's actually very cheap to run and actually very fast. So you should have a look at that. And if you don't have anything to show your data, either use Tableau or Power BI, which are extremely easy to integrate, and it's going to go faster than trying to either implement your own solution or using Excel and others. So game content, for the people who doesn't know PlayFab, obviously you can use it as a CMS for your game, not only to do your game events, so it means that you have to manage all the monsters, your asset bundles if you're using Unity, but also all your analytics that are required to know your RPPU and all these things. You're going to find it. We're spending a lot of time and money right now in PlayFab. So before the acquisition, we're about like 20 people, and now we're more than 100 people working on PlayFab. 95% of that is only engineers. So you can think about what's coming up in the next year. It's going to be pretty awesome. And yeah, there's a lot of other tools out there, right? So you can look and try to find what is the best for you. But any deal that you're going to come up with the service provider, I extremely recommend that you try to get something for free for them. Because when you have a game that is successful, obviously, you're kind of bound to that service afterwards. So where the future, I think, is going. So that's an old video, actually, of like 3 years ago into image recognition, things that's going around. So I'm a big a believer that soon enough, you're going to see more games that implements location so that you go around and actually figure out what is your surrounding. Why I'm saying that is that now, if you go back like 5 years ago, it was there was still an uptick into the people who didn't have the phones, and now everyone has phones, but also everyone now has really good phones. And if we take that up and go a bit deeper into artificial intelligence itself and machine learning, which we already implementing in many games. Now we have actually AIs that can beat up anyone, right? So it means that there's AIs that use the same set of tools as regular players, and no one can beat up those AIs. So we're already seeing some companies making games that is entirely the whole community against the AI. And so that's really a new type of cooperative game that is coming. And also augmented system for segments, bundle, cohorts retention, creation of content that is automated. That's coming. So that's super interesting. We can talk more about this. And then if we go beyond that, in 2025, 5G is going to be available for the whole planet. So what does that mean? Okay, so that means that not only you have a phone, but you're going 10 gigabytes per second, and also it goes through anything. So it means that even if you're in the metro here, it's still going to work. Right? So it means it's persistent connection all the time with a set of data that is astronomical. So already we're seeing the studios working on MMOs for mobile that will have thousands of people at the same time, and then you go through a journey that is localized even. And I'm not going into the headsets like the HoloLens and things that obviously is the first generation, and that from 2022 and up, you're really going to have something that is light and you can bring the game with you all the time. So definitely live game operation is going to be here for a long time, and it's probably going to dominate a lot of things that we do also in the society in general. So yeah, we are entering the augmented age, and so it means that everything around us is going to be augmented, and we need groups in the back, such as live operation specialists, either in the B2B model or in the entertainment model, to understand what is required to motivate the people to do more things. So, bring life with live game operation. Any question?
It's just more like we were talking yesterday morning with Voodoo and ultra casual games. So, what is your view of like ultra casual games that usually have the shark fin and live ops and?
Yeah, sure. So, so here's the thing: is that when you reach 1 billion download plus, right? The quantitative of there's three KPIs are important. Okay, it's either you have a lot of users, you convert very well to monetization, right? Or your virality is like super awesome, right? So in that case, they have really good amount of players. It's the same as League of Legends, right? Where you have a huge amount of players and a slow amount of people that convert to monetize. So in the end, that's the economic, and that is fine, right? So. Yeah, I've played a lot of Voodoo games as well and compete in leaderboards, and then you won another one, right? So yeah. All right. Thank you so much.